YouTube, this is Boba7772, and today I am here to show you the new Amazing Spider-Man movie review. So without further ado, let's get started. This is the Amazing Spider-Man from 2012, not to be confused with the comics or anything. This is the movie one. And pretty much just giving you my thoughts on this. So this might or might not have spoilers. I'm not sure. So be a bit cautious if you don't want spoilers at all. I might say something really little. So don't watch if you don't want any spoilers. So pretty much the premise of the movie was, hey, there's this kid and his parents left him. And he's in high school, or his parents left him with his aunt and uncle, and then he gets put in high school and he's bullied and he's wondering what happened to his parents, and there's a girl he likes, and then he figures out that the doctor who worked with his dad, like all this stuff in his life's connected, and then he's like, yeah, I should probably go, talk to him and find some stuff out. Well, the guy is Dr. Connors. I'm not sure of his first name, Kurt or something like that. And he pretty much is like, yeah, I don't have an arm, so we're going to be studying, we're doing research on reptile thing where you fuse reptile DNA with human DNA in order to regrow limbs. So Peter figured this out, and he's like, okay, let's do this. And then he helped Dr. Connor figure the whole thing out. Dr. Connor turned into a lizard. It was a huge battle. Everything in the movie was connected. So yeah, that might have been spoiler-ish. I don't know. That was like main premise-ish. Shouldn't be spoilers. Anyway, I'll probably be doing spoilers now because I want to actually talk about movies in spoiler detail, that kind of detail, the spoiler kind. That's the best kind. So Peter is pretty much like your high school kid who is the unpopular, who bullies try to beat up, and then he goes and he wants to talk to Dr. Connors in order to find out about his parents. Well, little does he know, the girl in his class who he likes, Gwen Stacy, is there as well. So she sees him because he answers a question because he's genius. And then she's like, hey, you're not supposed to be here. And then he's like, yeah, well, I am. So he wanders up to this room. It's in Oscorp, Norman Osborn's thing. And he's looking around, and there's these spider webs. He barely touches this little thing in that room. Everything drops. I'm not sure if that's what made it drop, but everything drops. Like all the spiders. And there are spiders jumping everywhere on him. And I'm like freaking out because I hate spiders. So I was like, I was almost crying because I was so scared. Like, or I would have if it had been 3D. Manly tear. I'm joking, by the way. So I was like creeped out at the spider part. That was like the creepiest part in any movie I've ever seen. Spiders just fell from everywhere on his head and everything. One of them is attached to him when he leaves the room. And he's talking to Gwen Stacy, and she's like, hey, let me see your thing, you're leaving. So she takes his thing, and a spider bites him, and he's like, ah, and she looks back. He's like, okay, whatever. So he goes out, and he develops all these superpowers. He finds this out, he's doing research on it. He goes to school the next day, and they're in the gym playing basketball, and they're being a jerk to this one girl who's trying to paint a sign. He knocked the bully, who was a bully at the beginning, knocked this paint can over. So he goes, he grabs the basketball, and he's like, oh, you want it back? Take it. And he starts humiliating the kid. And I thought it was hilarious, and he did deserve that, by the way. So he starts humiliating the kid who's being a bully to him, a bully to another kid the first day, a bully to the girl in the room, and apparently Gwen Stacy's friend. So he's like humiliating him, like, you can't take the ball, blah, blah, blah. And then he's like, okay, you can actually have it. He, reaches his arm out like so, like, hey, take it. And he had the basketball in his hand. And he could not take it. And then he starts dribbling it to show like, hey, I don't have it super glued or anything to my hand. You're just too weak, blah, blah, blah. And then he's like, I'm going to make the basket now. So he goes and makes the basket and pretty much breaks everything because of his super strength. He gets called out to the office, and Uncle Ben is upset at him. And then he's like, you're going to have to pick up your aunt tonight because I have to work the other shift now. And Peter's like, okay. And this is a part of the movie where I'm like, why did they have to add this part? This is just gonna, you see the trouble coming here. And then I was like, okay, so I'm looking, like, I'm just kind of waiting for this part, like, expecting the bad, like, trying to brace it. So, he goes, and he's doing all this cool stuff with his skateboard and swinging from these chains in this, one place. Well, then he goes to Dr. Connor's, house, because Dr. Connors invited him over. No, not house, the Oscorp place. Because Norman I can't say anything right. Because Dr. Connors invited him there, because after Spidey went to his house earlier. So Peter is talking to Connors, and he's like, yeah, so then they perfect the reptile thingy, mabobber, and bam, they perfect it, and they grow a mouse's limb back. So then they're like, okay, that's good. So then they leave. There was a call on his phone while Peter was there, and Dr. Connors was like, answered, and Peter's like, no. Well, that call is important because later Peter goes home, and Uncle Ben's like, you made your aunt walk through the dead of the night, and she's a woman, and she won't be able to do that, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, okay, sexist old man with his old ways that won't listen to anything of how it should be, blah, blah, blah. I'm thinking, like, this huge scenario in my head, which Uncle Ben is cool. He's funny. Pretty much, he goes in and apologizes to her, and then he's like, okay, so, I'm sorry. And then she's like, oh, I don't care. And I'm like, okay, this is just this is about him now, and he's trying to make it think that it's about someone else. Well, he gets mad and brings his father into it, or Uncle Ben brings his father, like, your father wouldn't do that. And he's like, my father isn't here. And he's like, don't go there. Then Peter leaves and slams the door, and then he's like, he goes and he left the house. Then Uncle Ben's like, I'm going after him. And then this is the part where I'm like, oh, no, they can't do this. And then it pretty much shows Uncle Ben walking in, and you see Peter hiding. And then you see Peter in a convenience store with this guy who I'm pretty sure, speculation here, might be the Sandman. Possibly, I don't know. Might be the Rhino, might be some villain. Might be Eddie Brock or the guy who's Carnage. I don't know much about Carnage, but he is cool. I'm going to assume that this is going to be a bigger bad guy in a later movie. He's in a convenience store with Peter, and Peter's 2 cents short on this thing. And I'm like, oh yeah, I've been in this scenario before. I just threw the... So Peter's like, I'm just taking 2 pennies from the take penny, give penny thing. He's like, sorry, store policy, you have to pay $10 in order to take a penny. And then, I'm thinking, like, if this is me, I'd throw him the pennies, take the milk, and leave, because he's trying to buy milk. So, he's like, you're holding up the line, because there's this guy behind him. So he's like, okay, whatever, and he's mad leaving. The guy behind him knocks something off the counter, and the cashier's like, well, that's rude. And then, the guy throws Peter the milk, so I'm like, this guy's awesome. Then I'm thinking back to Uncle Ben, and I'm like, oh, wait, hang on. This might be bad. So, Uncle Ben's kind of walking down the street while they're in the store. He takes the money, the thief takes the money out of the cash register and runs for it. On his left, yeah, this is my left hand. On the left hand, he has like a star tattoo on his wrist thing. Right there, a star tattoo. So, he's running away, and the guy who owns the store is like, stop. The reason I'm going into detail about certain parts is they're more important, I think, to the plot, given my opinion on everything. Anyway, he's like, help me hunt him down, and Peter's like, not my policy, and I'm like, I see what you did there, I would have done the same thing too. Then you see Uncle Ben walking by, and earlier Uncle Ben's like, oh, you should help people, because it's a moral obligation, and everyone should help people if needed. So the guy drops a gun, and he kind of trips, and Uncle Ben's like trying to stop him. The guy picks up the gun and shoots Uncle Ben, and Peter's like, oh no, and he walks over, and he's like trying to hold the blood in, and then he's kind of crying, or not really crying, not like Spider-Man 3. That was awful, by the way. I did not like the original trilogy at all. So Spidey is like, no, help him, and then he dies. So they show him a picture, and he's like, can I keep that picture? So he's using his superpowers, makes a mask, and is going after anyone who fits the description of this guy. Well, he goes after all these people, and he humiliates them. It's hilarious. He's acting like his teenage self, like, oh, I'm gonna be immature about this, blah, blah, blah. So, he's looking for this guy, and he becomes wanted by the police. Well, meanwhile, Dr. Connors gets fired from Oztech place, because Norman Osborn's dying, and they need to use the thing that he came up with to heal limbs or something. I'm assuming that they're like gonna cut his heart out and then regrow. I don't know what they're doing there. I don't get what the limb growthery thing was gonna do. So anyway, Dr. Connors, they're like, you're fired unless you try it on human subjects. We won't even have to tell him. And Connors like, that's evil. So I'm like, I like this guy. He's cool. Then Connors tries it on himself, and I'm like, why? I guess he's trying to save himself. I still like this guy through the whole movie. Dr. Connors was awesome. So he pretty much turns into this lizard guy. And meanwhile, Spidey's wanted by the police. Well, there's this incident on the bridge with the lizard, like, is trying to kill the guy who pretty much fired him. And he doesn't make it, so he runs away. And Spider-Man comes up, and he saves this. He saved that guy who Lizard was trying to kill, and he also saved a kid. And then he was pretty much like, oh yeah, I'm awesome, I'm a hero. And then he goes to Gwen Stacy's like, hey, want to come over for dinner? And he's like, sweet. So he ends up on her thing, like 20. She's in an apartment like 20 stories up, and he ends up on her little deck thing. She's like, how'd you get there? And then I'm like, he's Spider-Man! He's Spider-Man! And then he's like, I climbed up the fire escape. I was like, lame. So he goes, and they pretty much eat, and then he has a discussion with her dad, and he hates Spider-Man because he's captain of the police force, to hunt him down. Well, he keeps trying to hunt him down. Pretty much the rest of the movie is repetitive. He keeps trying to hunt him down. Spider-Man's trying to get the lizard. There were a couple of really cool action scenes, like the skull fight and the sewer fight. Those were both really cool. Pretty much CGI fights, but still, they were awesome. And you're still feeling for Dr. Connors, but he's like, I'm pretty sure it's a medicine that he's using that's making him not think clearly. Well, pretty much you get to the end. Gwen Stacy knows that Peter Parker's Spider-Man, and then Spider-Man's trying to get to the lizard because the lizard's trying to make everybody, like, heal everyone or turn them into lizards, because he thinks that it's going to make them stronger and smarter and better and whatnot in every way. So Spider-Man's trying to get there. Gwen Stacy's there, and she kind of fights him off and gets out. Then she gives the cure to her dad. Oh yeah, they had a cure, by the way. So she's like, hey, distribute this cure. So Captain George Stacy, her dad, which, by the way, is one of my favorite characters in this movie. He was awesome. He went up to the top of the building while these guys... the guy who Spider-Man saved, the kid, the dad, these guys owed him favors, who worked at a crane company conveniently, so they pretty much helped out Spider-Man get to the thing where Lizard was going to distribute the thing and kill everyone. Yeah, Lizard also had a fight, I keep forgetting about part. About a few minutes, like, before all this happened, Lizard had a fight with all of these, I guess who were SWAT team guys, and, they, like, shot him down, and he was like, oh, is he dead? Then, Lizard, like, comes up with these canisters and turns them all into reptiles, although you don't really get to see anything, which is boring. Well, Spider-Man is making his way up to stop Lizard. Captain George Stacy is making his way up to, just give Spider-Man the cure so that they can save him, because, also a few minutes earlier, which I forgot again, jumping ahead, George Stacy found out that Spider-Man was Peter Parker, and Peter Parker's like, hey, I'm a good guy, you trust me, right? You should, please, I'm your daughter's boyfriend, blah, blah, blah. So he's like, okay, you can go save my daughter. So, anyway, those three get there for the final battle, and Captain George Stacy's holding them off. Once again, going flashback here, all flashback mode, Stacy was telling Peter, I don't know what would happen. I never know if my father's going to come back. So I'm like, don't kill this guy off too. They kill him off, pretty much. And Spidey has to fight the lizard. And then everything happens. Anyway, the huge fight scene thing happens. The cure is distributed, saves those SWAT team guys, and Spidey puts Dr. Connors in jail. Spider-Man kind of becomes a hero. Captain George Stacy dies, unfortunately, which he was cool. But this time they didn't kill the villain off, which I liked. So we have him in prison, and then like everything's going fine for Peter. Well, Captain George Stacy's like, promise you won't see my daughter anymore, which, you know, he ultimately like doesn't keep that promise. So he goes and he lives a happy life until The Amazing Spider-Man 2 comes out, which will come out and it will be awesome. I'm thinking, this is a good movie. Well, then, like, I'm staying because they might have stuff after the credits. They didn't have stuff at the very end, but they had stuff kind of mid-credits. It shows Dr. Connors in prison, and you see this mystery guy, which, you know, most people are assuming that it's Norman Osborn. He's like, have you told Peter the truth about his parents? And Dr. Connors is like, leave the poor boy alone. And then he laughs and leaves. And I'm like, yeah, this is so the Green Goblin. I know who the villain for the next movie is going to be. Although I kind of wish it would be like Rhino or Electro or Venom and Carnage or something like that. Maybe they'll save them up for the last. Anyway, so that happened. So yeah, that's pretty much spoiler. Me going through the movie, telling my opinion version. That's kind of like a walk through of the movie. Yeah. So I thought that it was really. I thought that this movie was really good. It was a good reboot. The original 3 Spider-Man, the original 2 were decent. I'll give them that. They were decent. The third one was god-awful, like wanting to slam your head into a wall awful. And they messed it up by putting 2 of the coolest villains in that movie and not in the other ones, like Venom and Hobgoblin. And they killed every villain off in every one of those, yet they still had, like, Green Goblin come back, and, you know, all that stuff. So I didn't like those, but I like this new one. I thought that it was really good, and it was a really good reboot. It's a really good start, and even a good standalone movie. So I'd probably give this movie a 9 out of 10. They were close to the comics, and they did really good. Just it wasn't perfect. It didn't like suit my this is perfect movie needs, but it was really good. So yeah, 9 out of 10. That should be good. That should be good, right? 9 out of 10 for a movie. Although I don't think that I'd probably be the best movie reviewer. Anyway, I liked the movie. I thought it was good. And for someone who likes that stuff, or is picky about that stuff, that should maybe say something. So yeah, that's my 20-minute spoiler version walkthrough movie review thing. Go watch it if you haven't, and I guess I'll also have a non-spoiler version. So thank you for watching, and yeah, you should probably go see it if you haven't. This is Bubba7772, signing out.